Good morning, everybody. It's Thursday, it's 11 o'clock. Welcome at your weekly coffee break with Diver webinar. This webinar is an initiative of Dimensional Insight together with its European partners, DBI, Infotool, Bimaxis and Integral. I'm very pleased to introduce you today to Gunilla Gustafsson. Gunilla works for Infotool Sweden and she's a very experienced diver consultant. Today she will show all the existing and new data portlets in Diver 7.1. Her presentation will take around 15 minutes and afterwards there is room for questions. You can ask questions using the Q&A panel at the bottom of your screen. So grab your cup of coffee. It's time for the webinar now. Gunilla, good luck and take it away.
Thank you, Leven. Today I will cover the topic with data portlets. Maybe not all of them, but the ones that's got to do with visualization and so maps and indicators and charts. Before we dive into that, I would just like to give a little reminder that DivePort, our portal, is like any other website, really. You can publish anything like films or images and documents along with all the reports and charts and everything from Diver. And also one very important thing is that you build the structure like any other website so that it's easy to find the information for the end users. So, and also the design, of course, like you always consider when you create a normal website. So you should consider that when you create DivePort too. Content, content, and content. With DivePort, there are a number of available tools you might not consider straight away. Of course, there's settings with the portals, but you can also use different environments for the structure, and of course, pages and portlets and so on. So there's a lot to learn about DivePort, and you can find all of it in a very nice online manual that we have these days, and it's you find a lot of information there. Let's look at the data portlets. You recognize marker portlets, of course, and quick view portlets and DivePort portlets. Today, I will cover a little bit about the charts and the maps and the indicators. Data portlets have in common, of course, that they need information, data from a seabase, like in the form of a sea plan or a model, of course, too. So models, dive plans, markers, dives, you need some sort of data to be able to publish anything in these sort of portlets. Now, starting with maps, in the manual, you will find all sorts of information about maps. And if you will look at the different types of oh, I'm sorry. Something went wrong here. Here we go. Available map types, that was the one that I was going to look at. So we have like boundary maps with regions, very suitable for regions where you normally show maybe sales data or different numbers. And we also have the heat map where you don't look necessarily in detail at numbers, you just look at more or less activity. So you can see it's more here and less over here. We also have the line map format, which is very suitable for transportations or where you want to see the route and how many passengers, for instance, or that type of information. I think the most commonly used map type is a point map, where you can actually see that here we have more activity and here we have less activity, and we also see the whole map in the background. Those of you who have tried on the maps in previous versions can rest assured that it's easier in later versions to deal with maps. So I urge you to try. Yes. Looking at a few examples from customers, we can see here that we have one customer who really likes color. And so this is a bright, very looking boundary map, where on the same page is published, of course, other information as well. So it can look like this, or it can look like this. Easy on the eye, not very many colors. And here we have information. Clickable, of course, and also zoomable. All maps you can zoom, and you have many zoom levels. And when it comes to layers, you have 5 layers of maps. So you can start with like a world map and then go further down. Here, you can, of course, zoom even more and start to get details. And move around to other places in the same map. We see here we have Sweden up there, and then not much going on up here right now, but you can list all the functionality that you expect from a map you have. So moving around and moving the map and zooming and all of that. And of course, also you can have, like in this instance, you can have different icons. This is the main office, and here we have our head office, and here we have the other offices, and you can click on one of them and get detailed information. So it works just like any other chart or report in Diver. You can click and get more information. And proportional size, of course, of symbols. Here we have more, and here we have less. There's additional tools that you can use, and you can make maps look like basically whatever you want. So here we have a very neat and clean map, and you can make it look like this if you use additional tools. OpenStreetMap is the one most commonly used, I think, for DI, but you can use other things as well. Bear in mind, though, that if you have other map sources, you might be able, you might have to pay additional fees. Speaking of no fees, Maki has this icon library that is for free, where you can download it, and you can also change color on all your icons. Because if you don't already have a set of icons by yourself, it's easy to download from there. And then, like I said, other sources can be used as well. Moving to indicators. I will not talk that much about indicators, since Debbie Lonsdale from DBI Ireland covered that area last time very nicely. But I will mention a few things. And alignment and design, I think, is very, very important when you use indicators. Use the same type of indicator for the same type of information. Like in this case, we have number of employees and total of women and men. And it's presented in the same way. And this here is a bar indicator, and there is a text indicator. And very easy on the eye. Visible data, that is what you want. You want the reader to understand what they're looking at. Make it look the same, look and feel, and very clear what you're looking at. And here we see a gauge combined also, of course, with other charts and stuff. And here we have a text indicator. If just to summarize the different indicator types, you can also look, let's see here. You can use all the different types and shapes. You can find them in the manual as well. Use with care, though. Like we always say, don't put too much into a web page. But here you can see that we have different types. And it's good to have them like this maybe on a test page, just to make sure you can see how they look like. But don't publish this to the end user because it's just too much information. And it sort of, what I said before, use the same type. It's easier on the eye. You can read more about this in the manual, like on gauges. You can see, for instance, here, you can just read up on how to use them, how to use thresholds, and you have all kinds of information here on the different types. Moving on, I want to show you a few of the charts that you might not be aware of that they're there. The normal ones, of course, but I'm not going to show them. I'm going to show you like the calendar heat matrix chart, where you can see here we have more activity and here we have no activity. And then you can zoom in on a month, and then of course you make it clickable and you can see underlying data. But it's a very good thing to explore and see immediately where you have activity and where you have less activity. Also the same with heat matrix, and here maybe not necessarily dates. We have here hospitals and age groups, and you can see in the coloring scheme how they relate to each other. We also have another nice one to show that. I like this one because you can see the size. Also, you see how they relate to each other. So here we have the age group, and here we see how more or less it is for each hospital. So that's a new one. We have a chord chart as well, where you can see perspective in relation. And of course, all these graphs are, or charts are clickable. Arc chart, where you can see patterns. Here we can see we have a larger flow, and here we have a less flow. And yeah, you can see how they relate to each other from hospital to hospital and from what department. This one I like very much. I think it shows very, very nicely. Instead of a normal line chart, you can use this one, and it's very informative. Trellis charts. This is where you can actually publish a series of subcharts in one go, rather than having to create one chart per each. So very nice when you want to compare, like in this case, one and the same dimension. The hospitals here, you're not limited to 4, like on this page. You can have any number of subcharts, but it's nice so that you don't have to create each and every one. And I want to mention the Spark chart, where you can show a trend. Here you don't use it for detailed information, you just use it for giving showing a trend. And so it's very neat to use for a month, I think. So you can see how you're doing trend-wise. Also here, remember, you can see it, all the information, how to use it in the manual. And it's also covered things that I haven't covered in this presentation. Just get in there and learn about the charts. And also want to show you a few new charts that are coming up in coming versions. And this is a tree map chart where you can see a hierarchical structure. It's a new way for me, at least, to see, look at the information, and you can see how much. In this case, you have a sales manager and product area. And also a Sankey chart, where it's a type of flow diagram where you can see how large a flow you have of different things that you want to look at. So it's interesting with all the charts that we have. Now, I also want to show you animated charts. I think that this gives a sorry about that. This gives you, yeah, it's a little bit nice to be able to have a little bit of a flow when you change a value or, yes. This is one. And if I go here, you can make it look like that, or gives a little life, I think, to your charts. You can also decide on how fast or how slow these graphs will be animated. Yeah, I think this is very neat. And I also want to show you that in charts, you can actually have dimension switching with quick view. So if I here now switch to this one instead, it'll show me figures for that. And I also have here summary column. So if I want to look at another summary column, I can do that in the same type of graph. And then of course, I can always, yes, if I want a certain area, let's say I want to choose one area, I go for this one, and I want another dimension. So it's very powerful. Like any other report, of course, with dimension switching, you can also have dimension switching in your chart. Yes. And with that, I say thank you very much. And I just want to, before we start the questions, introduce you to the next week's session, where Michelle van der Meer from Dimensional Insight in Netherlands will show you stamps and self-service in DivePort. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Gunilla. Thank you very much for a very good presentation. Great to see the animated charts. I know that there are a couple of people who are very happy with this new functionality. I believe it was released only very recently, so it's the first time that I see it. That's very exciting. There are a couple of questions. First question comes from Isabella. She asks, in the first webinar, you showed the DIUX style template. Can you apply the DIUX template also to the skin, also to the charts?
Yes, yes, you can definitely, and you will. Yep, you define all the colors that you want, and they will automatically be connected with your chart. If if you don't use the marker charts, if you don't use what's defined in the marker, you can actually use the skin. Yep.
Okay, the second question comes from Debbie. She asks if you used a list quick view to change the value in the chart portlet.
Yep, that's you have a list quick view to get well combined with. Of course, you have to connect it with the summary fields and everything, all the rest. But yes. Okay, well. That brings us to the end of this webinar. Thank you very much again, Gunilla, for this great presentation. I finished my coffee and I think it was very worthwhile to see what you had to present us. I look forward to meet you all next week at another webinar that will be presented by my colleague Michelle van der Meer about the stamp portlet. So looking forward to see you next week. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.